It was a frigid, snowy Christmas Eve. We were leaving my grandmother's place. When I say we, I mean me and my younger brother, Ricky. The snowstorm intensified as we approached home. The roads were already bad, and it was dark, so I was reasonably concerned, especially because I was a novice driver and this was my first time driving in the winter. I had my younger brother in the car, for whom I was responsible. My grandparents reside in the country, so we had to drive for miles before we reached the downtown section of the city where they live. I depended on my phone's GPS to navigate us to my grandparents' place, which is an hour distant, and I don't go there very frequently. This is my first time there in around 7 or 8 years, so I had to rely on my GPS to navigate us home. I missed too many turns while driving to recall my way home. The problem was that my phone died after about 10 minutes of driving, so I couldn't call anyone, and my younger brother didn't even have one yet. We considered turning around and going back to my grandparents' house, but we didn't give it much thought. We certainly should have, but I chose not to because we were never particularly connected to this side of the family, and I figured it would be awkward. Luckily, I found my way back to the town where they lived. I was considering, okay, maybe I can buy a phone charger at a gas station, or like maybe I could use someone's phone. However, all of the stores, including the 3 gas stations we located, were closed. We were down on our luck. However, we did find a motel that was genuinely open. Thank God, I thought to myself. They will undoubtedly have a phone I can use. With the exception of one employee at the front desk, there was virtually no one present. When I walked in, I saw no cars in the parking lot. I explained to him our position. I asked to borrow a phone. He replied, "Sure, and that would be no trouble at all. Good luck getting service," he remarked. When he said so, he spoke in a strange, foreboding tone. "I'm okay," I said. This guy appeared strange, I thought to myself. I dialed my mother's phone number, but it only made a persistent beeping noise, indicating no service. I must have tried 10 times, but to no avail. We had been trying to figure stuff out for hours and were becoming fatigued, so I decided to give in. I told my younger brother that we would have to sleep here for the night and depart first thing in the morning. I felt terrible since I knew my folks must be worried sick about us. I forgot to note that this restaurant was, to say the least, ratchet. I mean, it looked pretty run down when we walked in, so I wasn't expecting anything special. But, man, this room was just nasty. The sheets smelled so bad that I couldn't sleep on the bed. I was just so sleepy that I couldn't help but fall asleep. I'm not sure what awakened me up. I wake up frequently during the night, and I'm not sure why. But, oh my goodness, I'm glad I woke up, because if I had stayed asleep for even a second longer, who knows what would have happened to my brother. When I woke up, I found my brother was not present. My heart was thumping so quickly. I was perplexed. I quickly stormed up and looked around the room. He was nowhere to be located. I dashed out of our room and down some steps to the front desk. "Hello, have you seen my brother? He's gone. I can't find him," I explained. He stared at me, shocked. "No, I haven't," he replied. "What? How is this possible?" I thought to myself. I dashed outside, wearing only shorts, a t-shirt, and slippers, and I kid you not, there was someone dressed in all black clutching my brother's hand, attempting to entice him into his car. "Hey, you piece of shit. Let him go," I shouted. He took off running alongside him. Fortunately, I caught up to him. I have never run that fast in my life. I smacked him in the back of the head as hard as I could, and he collapsed to the ground while I slid and fell on some ice. The man fled, and I retrieved my brother and led him inside. I calmed him down and assured him that everything was fine. Ricky couldn't sleep, so he took my wallet to get some snacks from the vending machine. He was lured out by several weird males. I'm not sure what was going on, how they believed they could get away with it, or what transpired. I'm simply pleased he's fine. We were able to get service a few hours later and contacted the authorities. I called my mother, and she helped us get home. The weird males are not well known to police. They believe he was in a stolen car. The only information I could provide was that he was tall, about 6 feet 2, and fairly slender. He had a shaven head and was probably in his mid-50s. This has caused significant trauma for both my brother and me. I feel so sorry for him. He's only a kid, and it haunts me to think that he's still out there doing this to other kids. This may sound strange, and it is, but for my 19th birthday, my friends arranged a little party for me at a run-down motel in a bad neighborhood. We chose this motel because we thought it would be less expensive, and we expected to be able to get away with a lot more than in a typical hotel or motel. My pals didn't have their own apartment yet, so we opted to party here. There were no parents' meetings, and no rules. We were all going high, smoking marijuana and drinking. I was having an excellent time. Originally, there were only supposed to be 6 of us, but as time passed, more and more people arrived. I had no idea who some of them were. By 11:30, there were about 15 of us crammed together in this small room. I told everyone to stop inviting people around, call the party off. Well, as time went on, more people showed up. We ended up getting a noise complaint, and one of the managers told me and 2 of my other friends that we had to make everyone leave or they were going to be kicking us all out. So, we made everyone leave. It was just me and 2 of my other friends at this point. Honestly, I much preferred it this way. It was way too crowded to be in there with all those people. By 1 o'clock, we were all pretty messed up, and we thought it would be fun to go walk around outside. Drama was the only one that seemed like he didn't want to, but we convinced him to come and that it would be fun. He said it wasn't smart because of how bad of an area we were in. I told them to stop overthinking and that everything would be fun. Everything wasn't going to be fine though. It was at first, but then it all went wrong. You see, we were having a blast just walking around and listening to music with our speaker pretty loud. We were on a main road in Detroit. It was a Saturday night, so there were lots of people around. I guess we made a wrong turn into a neighborhood because our fun stopped abruptly when we ran into a group of 8 or 9 plus guys who honestly looked like they were up to no good. I knew something bad was about to happen by the way they were walking over to us and by their tone of voice. They didn't even really say much to us though. And I'm sorry for getting graphic here, but they pretty much beat the crap out of us and took all of our phones, money, and even our liquor. One guy took my watch that my parents got me for my birthday last year as well. When they finally stopped beating us and took off, John and I soon realized that my friend Tommy literally got knocked out cold. We had no way of calling the police, so our only option was to carry Tommy home. I don't know why we were so dumb and naive and thought nothing could happen to us. The whole situation was one big mistake and easily the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. I regret everything about that night. Tommy ended up coming to shortly after picking him up. Tommy and I both suffered from severe concussions, while John had a cracked rib. We ended up making a police report, but there wasn't much we could do other than wait and see if the cops could come up with anything. They never did.
I was on a road trip to visit my cousin. He lives virtually on the opposite side of the United States from me. He lives in El Paso, Texas, and I was traveling from the northern portion of Michigan, which is obviously a long commute. The driving is a little much for me, but I've been doing it once a year every summer for the past 4 years, so I suppose you could say I'm accustomed to it. Still, it's nearly hard to become accustomed to traveling so far at once. I mean, I do take breaks here and there, but that's a lot of driving. You start to grow irritated and sore after sitting in the same position for so long. Anyway, it's not a big deal because I enjoy visiting my cousins, so it's all worthwhile for me. On the first night of driving, I began to feel tired. I'd been traveling for about 9 hours, with only a halt at a gas station for snacks and a restroom break. As I previously stated, it was coming close to the time when I should probably go to bed before I became delirious while driving. The nearest motel I knew of was about 30 minutes away, so I chose to stop there. When I arrived, it seemed weird. It could be because I'm unfamiliar with the area, or because it was midnight, and the motel appeared to be a little run down. But I didn't want to sleep in my car at a rest stop, so this was my next best alternative. The region was rather remote. I'm quite sure there was a town only a few miles down the road, but it had that old town, middle of nowhere look and feel to it, if you know what I mean. I don't mean it in a bad manner. Despite the fact that it was run down, I found it extremely pleasant. It felt luxurious to sleep in a bed. As soon as I walked into my room, I was relieved since I could finally relax for the night. I stretched, ate some crackers, and switched on the television. I began sleeping off shortly after. I don't know how long I was sleeping, but I heard a couple of strong bangs on my window.
Hey dude, help, I need help. Let me in please, it is an emergency, help.
The speaker exclaimed. What the hell is going on? I thought to myself. I woke in a fright. I almost opened the door for him, but I chose not to. I suddenly had a gut-wrenching feeling that something was wrong. I told him to go to the front office or seek assistance from someone else because I was in deep sleep, and he scared the very hell out of me. He said, and I quote, "Whatever man, screw you then." He walked away. Only a few moments later, while I sat there in shock, attempting to absorb my thoughts, 30 minutes had passed. I was quivering with dread from what had just happened, and I didn't want to go back asleep in case he wanted to return. I'm not sure if I materialized it, but he returned, this time much angrier. He then attempted to open the door by using the door handle. He eventually broke through by picking the lock somehow. Dude, what the hell do you want from me? I shouted.
Just give me your wallet, and everything will be fine.
He continued pulling out a revolver and pointing at me as he went in, saying,
I'm not going to ask you again.
I instantly handed him my wallet, phone, and keys. He fled with the card and everything, and God only knows what else. When he took off, you could hear the tires burning rubber as he accelerated. I dashed to the front desk to tell them everything that had just happened. We phoned the cops, and when they arrived 30 minutes later, there wasn't much they could do. It wasn't until 2 days later that they discovered my automobile was totaled around an hour and 30 minutes away. Fortunately, I only had $150 in my wallet, so I canceled all of my credit cards before he could max them up. This was by far the most bizarre incident that had ever happened to me. I was so shaken that I opted to avoid seeing my cousins that year. My fiancée actually took a day off work to drive and pick me up. I haven't heard anything about the matter since.